Hello everyone, a Citizen here with a video today featuring the Tier 10 Russian cruiser Smolensk. Now, this is a long overdue video for reasons that I will get into shortly. If you want to see the captain skills and upgrades I am using, they will be shown in the top left of the screen. Now, before I get into the ship itself and this game, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. For those who don't know me, I am a North American community contributor with Wargaming. I make the majority of my content over on Twitch. Now, being a CC, Wargaming has provided me with a large amount of free stuff to give away for Christmas. So this New Year's Eve at 10:30 p.m., I will be hosting a giveaway stream. What I have to give away right now is 16 community contributor crates, 27 Santa's Mega Gift crates, and a Tier 8 Premium Ship crate as well. With this being a Christmas giveaway stream, I'll also be digging into my own pockets as well for little giveaways of my own. A link down will be in the description. Definitely appreciate it if you guys drop a follow over to my Twitch channel. Now, back to the video at hand with the Smolensk. The Smolensk, of course, being the Tier 10 Russian light cruiser, and probably the most controversial ship that has ever been added to World of Warships. This ship was introduced early in 2019 for testing, alongside the very similar French cruiser, the Colbert. While both of those ships were getting tested, the Colbert received quite a significant amount of negative attention from the community. This was rightfully so. However, it did lead to significant changes by Wargaming to the Colbert before it was released, which largely balance the ship. Now, it is still a little bit ridiculous in my opinion, but it is nothing as bad as what we currently have with the Smolensk. And I am legitimately confused as to how the Smolensk was able to avoid the issues that it creates, especially during when it was testing, and how it was able to slip under everyone's radar until it got released. Now, what is the Smolensk? Well, the Smolensk is essentially Super Grozavoy. This is a ship with 16 guns. They are 130 millimeters in caliber. They shoot the exact same ammunition as the Grozavoy, and it has a 4.5-second reload. Now, you can get that reload down to 3.6 seconds. I would highly recommend doing so using the upgrade, the Slot 6 upgrade for 12% better DPM and basic firing training. This maximizes your AP and high explosive DPM, as well as your fires per minute. And the guns are the bread and butter of this ship, so you want to focus on them with your captain skills as much as possible. Now, other things that the Smolensk has is 5 torpedoes per side. These have 8 kilometers range. Their damage isn't impressive. They're really more for self-defense. But you can definitely take advantage of them if people are rushing you. Now, the biggest issue that I think everybody has with the Smolensk is the fact that for some reason, the ship was given a smokescreen consumable. Now, it only gets one of these by default, so a Superintendent and Premium, you can get 3 total smokescreens, which is the exact same as the Kutuzov, and I would very much compare this ship as a Tier 10 Kutuzov, because that's what it feels like a lot of the time. Now, this smokescreen is the biggest issue I think a lot of people have with the Smolensk, because instead of having to play tactically and position yourself properly using the use of islands, you can create your own concealment anywhere. And because of the game being as old as it is on the engine that it is on, it has a serious issue with shell rendering. So when people are trying to blind fire you in your smoke, it is significantly difficult, more so than something like, say, a Minotaur would be. And so that is another benefit that the Smolensk has. So essentially what Wargaming has given us is a super high explosive smoke spammer. And I can't fathom why. I feel like Wargaming has learned this lesson half a dozen times in the past. We had the Kutuzov, which is so overpowered or at least it was so overpowered, that they had to remove it from sale and lock it as a rare ship. We had the British light cruiser line, which was originally tested with smoke and high explosive, was so ridiculous that they had to remove high explosive from the ships together. We had the American light cruiser line, which was balanced around not having smoke and being squishy, with quotations there, squishy, but was also given almost every consumable in the game to make up for it. And then, for some reason, Wargaming just says, fuck it, and we get this, which is a light cruiser with smoke. But it's more than a light cruiser with smoke. This is a ship with basically the highest effective damage per minute in the game. There is one ship with technically higher, that would be the Colbert, but it is much harder to translate your DPM with the Colbert into actual DPM than it is with the Smolensk, and that's mainly due to the shell arcs. Now, while these are only 130mm guns in caliber, they are significantly faster in shell velocity than most light cruisers in the game. Stuff like Worcester and Minotaur are nowhere near as effective as this ship is at its more comfortable ranges out to 16 kilometers. And couple that with the fact that this thing has a smoke screen and rapid firing turrets means that this thing can essentially cover a massive area of the map and make it a no-go zone with very little ability for anybody to dislodge it or do anything about it without risking their entire ship, because the DPM this thing pumps out is too much for any one person to sustain. In fact, I'm going to even show that on this Georgia right here. If you notice, he's actually going forward, so I'm going to bring my guns around, and I'm going to switch over to armor piercing. Now, because you have 16 guns at a 3.6 second reload, the armor piercing on this ship has such an insane amount of power behind it that nobody can sustain this. It is essentially like a Minotaur that is shooting you, but whereas the Minotaur has to trade its high explosive for its AP DPM, the Smolensk doesn't. So as you can see, the amount of damage I just did to that Georgia right there was absolutely insane with armor piercing. We're getting like 6k salvos. And there are other ships that are weaker to it. Stuff like the French battleships, the Republic, will take 9,000 damage salvos every 3.6 seconds. Which is absolutely absurd and crazy to me. Now, the Smolensk does have weaknesses. It's not all strengths. But its weaknesses kind of have a trick card up their sleeve. And the big weakness of this ship is that it has incredibly weak armor. At first, the ship has got 32,000 health. I think it's 32,400. Apologize, I don't know that number right off the top of my head. Which is the lowest health pool of any tier 10 cruiser in the game. And it has a raised citadel. Now that raised citadel is only covered by 70mm of armor, which is the thinnest for any tier 10 cruiser, which is very easy to hit and can quite easily be citadel. Other issues with this ship is that the bow and stern armor is only 16mm, which is overmatched by 233 and above, I believe. So that'll be the upcoming British cruisers as well as the Henry IV and all super cruisers that are in the game. And now, it's not all bad news with the armor. The armor side and deck plating is currently 30mm, which does allow you to bounce shells 429mm and below. So we're talking Kurfürst, Montana, Bourgogne, any of the tier 9 and below battleships except for Musashi. So that is very nice in that factor going for the Smolensk. However, there is a caveat with the citadel protection of this ship. If you notice, the ship is incredibly slender. It is a thin ship. It does not take up much space in the water. And that is one of the other sources of frustration with this ship. This ship has something that I like to call retard armor. That is where you essentially can't be punished for playing ridiculously stupid, and I'll actually take advantage of that later on. I'll show you. But what essentially happens is anybody who has high velocity guns, if they're too close to you, and you don't have to be that close to be too close, or battleships, will often score overpens when they hit this ship. Not pens, not citadels. They'll just cleave straight through, get maybe 5,000 damage, which the Smolensk can just shrug off, and it'll continue to dock at them. Furthermore, this ship, while being incredibly slender, is not very long. It's only slightly bigger than something like a Harugamo or a Khabarovsk, so coupled with the fact that you typically stay at range with this ship, it is incredibly hard to hit, even when it's not in its smoke screen. So the ship creates a lot of issues in actually trying to kill it, despite the fact that it doesn't come with any armor. Now, another consumable that does have access to is Hydra or defensive fire. This ship does have extremely good anti-air, at least for how the game currently handles it. So defensive fire you might think is viable, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would prefer to run Hydro just because there is a constant threat of torps when you are hiding in your smoke screen, so you do want to make yourself safe from that. You don't have any torpedo protection, which is one of the unique traits among tier 10 cruisers. Now, I do see this Kerpers was pushing out, so I went ahead and smoked up. And this is why I run the build that I do. You'll notice I set 2 fires on him immediately, and I targeted the back end. I got a 3rd fire. And then you'll notice he actually has repaired. He's used his damage control, I understand. He was on 3 fires. So that's going to be 15 seconds long, or longer if he's running the damage control module, but highly unlikely. So I switched to armor piercing for 2 salvos, and then I go back to my high explosive. Now, this guy is currently being spotted, so I just get to get free reign on him, and then we see I immediately get a fire. Oh, the 2nd salvo immediately sets another fire. And those are the superstructure fires, so I go to targeting the back end of his ship. I miss that salvo. But then wait, another fire. So the man is immediately back on a triple fire. Now, I go to target the bow section. Unfortunately, this is where my RNG stops, and I would have killed him faster if I just shot the superstructure, but I am a man of meme culture, and setting people on quad fires is hilarious to me. But something that can set that many fires that quickly from stealth, what purpose does that have in the game? There's the quad fire. I also get an arsonist, and I snuck in the witherer reward as well. I'm up to 230,000 damage, but this game is nowhere near done. In fact, my team is barely ahead of the other team, so this could be lost. So I am actually out of smokes at this point, but I'm not too worried. I am perfectly capable of open water gunboating in this ship, and right now I am actually isolated from everybody but the key on their team, so I'm going to go ahead and just start pumping some rain upon him. Their carrier is going to recognize the threat that I am posing to him. He's actually moved from where he last was on the minimap. He's down by those islands by the capture point. So as I rain down fire on the key, I set a double fire on him right away, and he did repair those. So after 10 seconds, he's going right back on fire because there's nothing that anybody can do about this. And there you go. Right away is a fire. Carrier does go ahead and drop some torpedoes on me, but I do dodge them right away. Now, going in front of this island could have been dangerous, but I did see that the Montana was stationary behind that island, so I would have been safe there. So that's why I went ahead and made this play. I tried to drop my torps, but there's a long shot of those hitting. And you see, I've already got the key on a double fire. He's going to burn to death, but I don't want him to shoot me anymore, so I just set a 3rd fire. And even when this ship is not in its smoke screen, which it honestly should have never received in the first place, you are so effective at starting fires that what can anybody do about this? People often complain of a passive meta in World of Warships, especially at tier 10, where people will just sit in the back and try not to involve their ship. And while they're absolutely correct, there are reasons for this. And this ship is one of those reasons. And it has been brought up on my stream 100 times on how dumb this ship is. I set my damage record on my account with this ship a month after it had been released. That's not something I should do right away. I have almost got 180,000 average damage in this ship after 60 games. That is ridiculously high. No other ship that I have comes close. They're all 30,000 damage away. But yet, we have this ship that we constantly are saying that it is too much, it is too overpowered, and our only response is, from a statistical standpoint, it's not. And here's another, and that's the issue I have. It is a spreadsheet mentality that we get from wargaming, and they really need to address some of the issues that ships like this cause, because they'll look at a spreadsheet of numbers and say that the ship is balanced. They'll say it to me and other contributors half 100 times, but nothing about this ship and what I've done this game is okay. I have over 1,000 gun hits. I have over 20 fires. I have over 300,000 damage. And I'm not done yet. And I'm just going to keep going. Now, right here, what I was talking about earlier with the overpen armor, I'm going out flat broadside to a Montana. But I know that if he shoots me from this range, like he just did, he's not going to hurt me. But I can do this to him. Look at that AP damage. Right? What is he supposed to do? He can't load high explosive. He's a Montana. It actually doesn't have the penetration to Citadel me. So he can just overpen me and hope that I don't do 40,000 damage to him in 20 seconds. Again, it's dumb. The ship seriously needs to be addressed by wargaming, or anybody who has the ability to, because sticking our heads in the sand and pretending that a ship like this should be allowed in World of Warships is not okay. I'll go ahead and show you guys the endgame results. I will see you all later. I do plan on continuing to make more YouTube content going forward in the future. I have some spicy videos on the Kremlin, as well as this most recent ranked 1v1 sprint in mind. I'll catch you guys all later. I'm out.